What's up everyone, I'm Joe Sasto and this is Food School. I'm gonna show you how to make flour and water pasta dough. All right, so in the family tree of pasta, I like to think of there as two major trees. You have your egg-based doughs and you have your flour and water-based doughs. Now, while they each serve their own purposes, that flour and water-based dough is really going to be your most basic pasta dough. You can make the most shapes without any tools. You don't need a mixer and you can do everything by hand, fatto mano. So we should just dive into this, shall we? I like starting in a bowl, completely against all of those traditions. I don't like to make a mess. I like to keep things nice and contained. And then I'm gonna slowly add my warm water. So pasta dough is a game of percentages. No matter how much dough that you're making, you can always guarantee yourself you're gonna use about 50% water. That's half as much flour as you're using. A great little tip is you use about 100 grams or a half a cup of flour for each person that you wanna serve. I don't wanna tell you how to eat or what a serving size is, but you can extrapolate on that knowledge if you'd like. So we'll start by just adding our water to our flour, leaving myself about a tablespoon or two in my bowl on the side. Now the reason for that is that every kitchen is going to be different and every time that you do this is going to be different because of the weather, because of the humidity, because of the flour, just because of your hands. Coming in with my hand, I'm just going to grab the water in the center while rotating and turning my bowl, squeezing all of that water into the flour. So what I'm doing here is not kneading. What I'm doing is hydrating the flour with that water. After about 30 seconds or so of squeezing and mixing, the flour's not sticking to your hand anymore, and you have a very rough and shaggy dough ball beginning to form. So as I continue to squeeze and try to work that flour, now I have my decision to make. I have a bit of flour down on the bottom of the bowl. I have a little more water. I could add a little more in there. I always like to find myself with a drier dough than a wet dough, because no one likes sticky things. So now at this point, we could already see that we're in a much better position compared to how much flour and water are left to use. I like to consider this little bit here my sacrifice to the pasta gods. And now we're gonna go into kneading. There's a lot of different ways and techniques to knead dough. I'm gonna show you one way to do it. So I'm gonna use my dominant hand here. The heel of my hand is gonna drive down into the pasta dough, starting in the middle, stretching and pressing that dough out. I'm gonna grab that piece of dough, bring it back over, and put it into the center of the dough. A lot of people make the mistake of folding the dough in half, and then you're not really kneading and capturing air, you're just folding the dough over and over. So once I push the dough to the center, I'm gonna give it a quarter turn. We're gonna keep things moving clockwise just for consistency. If you start going back and forth, the next thing you know, you're a DJ and you're not a pasta maker, and that's a whole different career path. So now that you've turned your dough, you're gonna come in here with the heel of your hand again, pressing that out, bringing it into the center, pressing it down, and eventually you'll find yourself being able to turn and roll and rotate the dough all the way around, beginning this kneading process. What we're doing is we're building gluten. It's what gives pasta its strength. It's what gives pasta its elasticity. So gluten is made by the hydration of water and protein. We have water here on one side, we have protein in our flour. And so through this mixing process, that water swells. That's how you make noodles. That's how you get that big open crumb structure that you see in beautiful photos of sourdough bread, all from gluten. So taking a look at my dough here, it's still very shaggy. It's rough and crackly around the edges. And I have all of this kind of dry bits gathering on my surface. Pasta dough is gonna do you the favor of telling you what it needs and what it doesn't need. So what I could do is take these dry bits here off the board, and then we're just gonna continue this kneading process. Just in case this is getting a little tough for you, a little hard, what you can do is always wet your hand. You could slowly incorporate a little more hydration into the dough, and that's gonna soften things up, and it's gonna really help you along your kneading process. Now, the next question I often get is how long do you need to be kneading, right? Some people say 8 minutes, some people say 5 minutes, some people say 35 minutes. Kneading is more so related to your efficiency and less so about the amount of time that you spent doing it. So a good example of that, if you're gonna stay in here and you're gonna knead very casually, it may take you 30 minutes to build up enough gluten and create a nice, soft, smooth and supple dough. But if you're gonna knead here with two hands, putting strong, heavy weight with the rhythm and intensity of a machine, you can be done kneading in 5 to 8 minutes. So focus much less on the amount of time and more so on the way that your dough looks and feels. If at any point you need to stop, you need to top off your wine, take a step back, grab a bowl, and just cover your dough. As long as it's covered, it's not gonna dry out. You can come back, you're refreshed, your arms feel better. Now you can come back in here and finish that kneading. We've been kneading, I'm kneading efficiently, and so I feel really good about the way this dough is coming along. Looking at the surface of my dough here, it is nice and smooth, it is supple. There is a small bit of a bounce back when I push my finger into it. That's a good sign that that gluten has formed and it's bouncing back. And then I always like to keep things nice and organized, as I say, by keeping your kneading and rotation in the same direction. You'd always check your organization by flipping your pasta over. See a little pasta belly button here? This is an innie, not an outie. And so you know you're in a good spot. So this dough here, resting at room temperature, either wrapped in a reusable bag, or if you're gonna use it right away, you could always just throw a bowl on top. And just like that, folks, you just made some pasta dough. Now you have a world of endless possibilities.